Well, welcome to the Challenge Cup, Austin, Texas. I can honestly, hand on heart, say in no city we've been in yet in the world have we received the kind of warm, friendly welcome that we received here in Austin, Texas. So thank you so much to the entire Austin community. So who here knows what the Challenge Cup is? Great. I won't bore you when I explain a little bit what we're doing here tonight. So the Challenge Cup is a global competition. And the idea is to go around the world to 16 different cities. In every city, identify startups that are doing tremendously interesting entrepreneurial things to tackle grand challenges that the world's facing. So we have 4 categories: education, healthcare, energy, and smart cities. And this is our 9th city so far. So before the holidays, we kicked off in DC, we went to Chicago, we went to Moscow, Berlin, and London. Pretty exhausted when we got back from that stretch. Then we did Los Angeles, New York, and Boston. Took a break. And here we're in Austin, Texas. Next week we're in Denver. And then we have an epic swing through Sao Paulo, Cape Town, Tel Aviv, Delhi, Beijing, and then we wrap up in Silicon Valley. So the startups that you're seeing here tonight are going to compete, and they're going to compete to represent Austin, represent Texas, in the global finals that we'll have in Washington, D.C. in the 2nd week in May. So these guys are going to go NCAA tournament style up against the best companies in their category from around the world. And the entire idea of the Challenge Cup is to really celebrate and identify the amazing innovation that's happening that really is transforming industries in ways that weren't previously possible. And it's all because of the power of startups. So before we get into the actual competition, I want to thank a number of people. And first, we've had been building a tremendous partnership, and we have had just a tremendously successful relationship so far with our host tonight. And I'd like to thank the Capital Factory, Josh Baer, stand up, give away. And looking forward to doing lots of other exciting things. We'll be back here for South by and calling Capital Factory home while we're down here. Also want to thank the Austin Chamber for all of the support you guys have provided us in really helping to engage here in Austin and get connected. So thank you so much to the Austin Chamber. The Challenge Cup globally wouldn't be possible without some tremendous corporate partners. And what's excellent is they're not only providing the financial support, but they really are figuring out ways to engage their networks, their channels, their expertise and talent, bringing mentors to these competitions to help these startups grow and scale. So I'd like to thank the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which is really focused on the message of free enterprise that the Challenge Cup represents. I'd like to thank American Airlines, Microsoft, Pearson, Watchatu, and then our 2 production partners, iStrategy Labs and Tech Cocktail. So thank you to all of the partners that make this possible. And then finally, you'll see here at the front of the room a great panel of judges, and I have to say we have some amazing names. We've gotten a chance to work with several of them during the day today as mentors, and probably our most illustrious panel of judges we've had so far in every city. So in no particular order, Michelle Skelding from the Austin Chamber of Commerce, want to give a quick wave. Josh Baer from Capital Factory. You already gave your big wave. Bob Metcalf, University of Texas, father of the internet. Kevin Callahan from MapMyFitness. Mark Murdoch from Gerson Lehman Group. And Pearson, who's one of our partners, has been amazing. They've had mentors and judges in every city around the world so far. And so from Pearson, largest education technology company in the world, we have Sean Duffy, Zach Kuzmic, Marianne Mosharraf, and Sam Newman. So if the Pearson crew wants to get away. So the format is pretty straightforward. We start with 1-minute pitches. There is a gong. Do we want to get a quick demonstration of the gong? Excellent. So if they exceed 1 minute, they will be gonged. They will be ushered off stage. So we're going to hear them in order, category by category. All of the companies go through, give their 1-minute pitch. And then we're going to adjourn as judges. You guys will have a little bit of time to mingle. We're going to pick 2 companies in every category, so 8 companies in total, who are going to come back up and give 5-minute pitches and then have an opportunity for 3 minutes of Q&A with the judges. And then we're going to go off, pick winners, come back, announce them, and then we're going to drink the rest of this beer and wine. So, quick test for Austin. So these startups have been working, we've been working with them yesterday afternoon, all day today, working on refining on their pitches, talking about their business models. So if a startup gets up and they deliver, just nail their pitch, it's incredibly polished, visionary, great execution, all of that, how do we respond as an audience here in Austin, Texas? There we go. Now, we've also seen some really amazing pitches in other directions. So if somebody gets up, they get 15 seconds in, they panic, they stare awkwardly at you for 45 seconds, they're still building a great business, they're still an entrepreneur taking a risk, and they've still been busting their asses on their pitches all day. So how do we respond down here in Austin, Texas? Absolutely. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brittany, who is going to MC things, and we'll get this started.
All right, thank you, Evan. So I just want to say again, thanks everyone for being here. It's been awesome being in Austin. We get to go to 16 startup hubs around the world, and Austin has just given us the most amazing welcome. So thank you to everyone for being here. Thank you to the startups. Most importantly, thank you to Josh and Capital Factory for being such great hosts. So like Evan said, I'm Brittany Hyde. I'm on the founding team of 1776, and I ditched a big law firm job to get to go around the world meeting startups. So it's pretty awesome. As far as tonight goes, we have 4 categories again: health, or education, energy, health, and smart cities. And we picked these categories because they represent over 50% of the economy, and we think that in Washington, D.C., we can do a lot to help these companies. So first off, we have 1-minute pitches. And our first category is education. And in the education category, we've seen everything from online learning platforms to gamification to everything else. And what it gets down to the point of is that all these companies are using data and a whole bunch of other really cool stuff to improve our kids' education, improve teenage education, and health education. So we're really excited to learn more about that. So first up is Aceable.
Let me start off a little interactive. Does everyone in here have their driver's license? Raise your hand if you have your driver's license. Everybody. Do you remember getting it? It's bad. I remember my creaky gym teacher taught me, but now kids today can take it online. But it's still really, really bad. Graphics are from the 80s. You have to sit on a page for 8 minutes. Aceable here is here to change all of that. We've combined game mechanics and story and edutainment to change the driver's ed experience. Teens have the leading cause of death with teens is traffic accidents. Aceable is going to change that through our mobile platform. We make it more convenient for the user. We reward the user for a positive experience, and we let them interact with their instructor in a way unseen. Driver's ed is a $500 million market that's part of required education. Our platform is flexible, and we can take it to the
Next up is Code Arcade.
Good evening. Currently, there are 50 million kids in the US who do not have access to a computer programming education. By the year 2020, we will be 1 million coders shy of meeting job demand. Code literacy, the ability to read and write code, is a huge problem in this country and globally. I'm a learning scientist. I've spent the last 4 years studying this problem and coming up with a better solution. Now, you can learn to code simply by playing video games. We're starting with Facebook gamers, women who are also managing professionals, and we're scaling from there to a $440 billion employer pain point. I'd like 5 minutes of your time to show you how. Please consider Code Arcade. Thank you.
Culture Booster.
Kids can't get jobs today, and youth unemployment is soaring. Why? 90% of U.S. employers say schools don't prepare kids for the basic business skills they need. Teachers struggle to make time and implement new lessons effectively with changing demands too. Culture Booster is helping them hack that. We are an online educational service that provides professional development to teachers. We also teach kids to create valuable community projects using crowdfunding through core curriculum. We pair crowdfunding with a complete curriculum about how business teams really work, teaching kids to bring their strengths to the team and learn by doing. We make money selling specialty curricula to PTAs and nonprofits and also earn 10% off every successfully funded campaign. Last fall, we had our first successful beta with 5 public schools in Texas. This spring, we're projecting to double that with more schools from 8 states. And with partners like Boy Scouts of America and United Way.
Next up is Prepify.
Good evening. Prepify is free online SAT prep for any student anywhere. Universities across the country are having an incredibly difficult time finding high-achieving, low-income students, and they desperately want these students. But searching for them is like looking for a needle in a haystack. Costly prep courses and private tutors cost hundreds and even thousands of dollars, which leaves low-income students at a significant disadvantage. But free access to Prepify enables students to do their best no matter where they come from. And it also helps universities. They will pay for leads for these students to receive direct access to recruit the exact market that they want to attend their schools. Students win, colleges win, and therefore we all win with Prepify.
Young potential development.
Everybody's talking about the change in education. Everybody says we need to do something to stop dropout rates. We found a way. We have a methodology. Actually, we have a box, the YPD box. And what's inside this box? An 80-hour school dropout prevention recovery program focused on emotional skills development, using entertainment as the main language to help teachers help kids to discover their potential and develop their talents. We're testing it with hundreds of teachers in 3 countries with incredible results. Multi-platform, tech-friendly, flexible, unique, scalable to every school. International telecom company Telefónica is selling it. The government of Ecuador is testing it. Udemy is building a YPD channel. Teach for All is testing it. We just got 8,000 unique users in 48 hours with vlog.com, and we're talking with Google. You want to see inside this box? Please do. That's the cool stuff. And then we will share our business plan.
So that wraps up education. We're on to energy next. And what we've seen over all of the different competitions are energy startups that are in energy production, storage, efficiency, and more. So first up here is Curb. Yay!
A huge amount of money has been wasted on energy management solutions that quickly become stale and irrelevant. That's why we built the first energy engagement platform. Imagine being able to see your energy change in real time as you turn on and off your light switch. Imagine being able to compete against your friends to make your home more efficient. Curb already has 100 residential users. But the most exciting of all of these opportunities that we have is that one of the nation's largest telecommunications provider has reached out to us to put together a pilot program for them, with the goal of ultimately rolling it into their home security and automation nationwide. What we add to these channel partners is that we give them a way to differentiate their product offering, as well as an additional source of revenue that ultimately helps the subscribers pay for the system itself by saving money on their energy bill. As a spinoff of Circular Energy, the 3rd fastest growing company in Austin, we think our team has what it takes to capitalize on this opportunity.
Next up is Incubator.
Imagine you can drive your electric vehicle 600 miles on a single charge with a smaller, lighter, and lower-cost battery. Finalist has third-party tested the most power and torque-efficient motor on this planet. It could even run on a Visa flashlight battery. That is the power that we take to the market. We have a first pilot with a wind turbine manufacturer here in Texas that appreciates the high energy efficiency. We're working with Brother International, a gearbox manufacturer going global for white label business. And we're talking to Audi, which you recognize with my excellent relationship, whose R18 race platform would appreciate the energy efficiency and the smaller size we can accomplish. 5 minutes more and I tell you more about the team that makes this thing happen, brings this thing to production, and of course the 230 million motors that we're going to replace one revolution at a time. And here's my customer.
And that would be TriTrack.
We know that electric cars is the future. We will design, build, sell electric vehicles. We are Henry Ford of electric cars. Imagine the typical millennial, young professional who cares about the environment and who would love to drive a cool electric car to make a statement, but he can't afford Tesla. So we can build that electric vehicle for him at a fraction of the cost with our patented technology. Our car, TriTrack, will drive at 200 miles range with quarter of the charging time and battery swap at 40 miles per hour. We have established relationships with our suppliers for years, and we can scale up to thousands of vehicles very easily without building a factory, which we will need because we have huge demand. We were surprised by the reception that we've got from our prospective customers. We even sold 3 vehicles without even they having been built. We are still building prototype.
And now we have N-Carbon.
We're good to go?
Yeah, we're good. Whenever you start talking.
So our team here at UT Austin has invented an entirely new form of carbon. It's a 3-dimensional porous structure with walls that are single atom thick. It's an extraordinary material. We're using it to build advanced electrodes for supercapacitors. Supercaps store electrical energy, and they have vastly superior cycle life compared to a lot of batteries. They go into a variety of things: grid, electric vehicles, power electronics, but we're most excited about the microhybrid market space. Microhybrids are the most cost-effective way to save fuel of any hybridization design. Over 50% of vehicles in Europe are already microhybrids, and it's rapidly expanding to the US and elsewhere. It realizes a $2.4 billion market specific addressable for our materials in the supercap space. Moving forward, we have received a grant from the Department of Energy to expand our commercialization effort, and we're the recipients of the 2011 World Technology Award for Energy for our work in
water lines.
You can't pick up the newspaper, look at your television, or if you prefer, run through your Twitter feed without hearing about how the hydraulic fracturing boom has just taken the world by storm, improved the economy, and actually enabled a lot of neat things. However, oil companies every day lose hundreds of thousands of dollars on each frac because they over-treat with chemicals for the water they use for fracking. They also forego millions of dollars in oil and gas production because they're using antiquated chemistries from the 1960s. WaterLens is a real-time, easy-to-use system for chemical analysis of waters at the well site. Our chemistry was custom designed for the harsh waters used in fracking in the oil industry, and it actually helps production and actually enables cost-effective recycling. We have done pilots and field trials with some of the biggest players in the industry, from Chevron to Schlumberger to Rockwater, and even an upper-comer here in Austin called Omni Water Solutions. We should be cash flow positive this year, and we'll have annualized net income in 2016 of $29 million. Thank you.
So that wraps up energy. Our next category is health, and we've all read the headlines about how massively inefficient our healthcare system is. So all of these companies look to solve that problem. So our first company up is Christine.
So we're using Google Glass in healthcare to solve the very simple and profound problems of, I need help, or can you come over here and look at this? We've developed a HIPAA-compliant and secure first-person audio and video streaming platform optimized for Google Glass and healthcare environments. Users are streaming Google Glass video wirelessly and hands-free, the key here being hands-free, so that you can work with patients from Glass to iOS devices, Android devices, Macs, and PCs. Right now we're targeting primarily wound care and emergency care environments where users are working with patients in very acute environments, oftentimes bleeding, respiratory issues, EKGs, and vital feeds,
very hands-on, personalized areas where carts and other forms of telemedicine aren't physically practical. We've been piloting at UC Irvine Medical Center since October 2nd, and we're actually generating revenue now. We're going to be rolling out to USC in just a couple of weeks, and we're going to be starting in a hospital in Fresno a couple of weeks after that. We'll be starting at Brown in March, and we're looking to roll out to one hospital per month indefinitely for the rest of the year. We're also in contract stage talks with Hopkins, Duke, and a few other hospitals today. Thank you.
Next up is Atlas.
All right, hi. My name is Peter Lee. I graduated from Hopkins with a master's degree in biomedical engineering. And I'm here to tell you two things. First of all, what is Atlas? So we've developed the technology, and it's for wearable technology. You're probably familiar with Fitbit. What we can do is, just from the wrist, we can tell you when you're doing push-ups, when you're doing squats, when you're doing sit-ups, when you're running, jogging, swimming, different types of strokes, everything. You don't have to write anything down. The second thing I want to tell you, what does this do to healthcare? The first is that everybody and anybody will be able to automatically and seamlessly record their health data. You don't have to write things down. You don't have to have a personal trainer next to you. You don't have to have a physical therapist around you. We can do all that automatically. And second, which is probably the most interesting, is the amount of data that we will have. We will be able to gather with the community all types of health and physiological data that has previously before been inaccessible to everyone. So we have a lot of interesting things. We just launched an Indiegogo a week ago. We have 100K. Come find us.
Chiron Health.
Chiron Health is a secure web-based platform that connects physicians with patients via video conference for routine follow-up appointments. Things like reviewing lab results, adjusting medications, and specialist referrals being done just as effectively over video conference. Right now, about half the states in the country have legislation requiring private insurance companies to pay for telemedicine just as they do for regular in-person visits. Despite this enormous opportunity, the vast majority of physicians in the country simply don't have the resources to handle the regulatory aspects of telemedicine. Chiron Health changes this dynamic, working with one of the top healthcare regulatory law practices in the country and a member of the Texas State Medical Board. Chiron Health handles state medical board regulations, HIPAA privacy concerns, and private payer reimbursement. Simply put, Chiron Health strips away the regulatory and administrative burden of providing telemedicine services to patients who need it most. Thank you.
Next up is ePatient Finder.
Hi guys. One day the doctor told my friend that he had run out of treatment options for his cancer. But we didn't give up. We found an experimental drug that saved his life. And my friend isn't alone. And that's why we founded ePatient Finder. ePatient Finder is a platform that allows our pharma clients to publish information on their clinical trials, share that information with our community of physicians, and that community of physicians is then able to log on, learn about these trials, but not only that, they're able to use our patent-pending analytics technology to actually look at their electronic health records, identify exactly which of their patients would benefit from this clinical trial opportunity, and refer them over. We have a lot of traction. We have a six-figure deal with Boston Scientific. We are working with Covance, the second largest clinical research organization in the world. We're about to close Pfizer and are in late-stage discussions with Novartis, as well as Bristol Myers Squibb. We're also in the process of rolling out a national 400-man sales force, and we did this in 6 weeks.
One thing, we have a lot of people that are out in the hall, so if you guys can let at least a few of those people in, kind of scooch down, that'd be great. Let a few people in to see the competition. All right, cool. Next one up is Filament Labs.
Hey everyone, my name is Colin. I'm the CPO and founder at Filament Labs. We created Patient.io for the 45% of Americans who are struggling with a chronic disease. Patient.io gives healthcare professionals the tools to track and manage their patients when they're outside of the clinic. From the patient's perspective, it's a simple-to-use app to manage the complex treatment regimens that's prescribed by the doctor, while giving them the ability to return important health data in an encrypted and secure manner. We're going after the $10 billion that was spent on telehealth solutions last year alone, and we're starting in the infusion therapy clinic, rolling out to 20 clinics nationwide next month. Last week, we booked our second paying customer, who also invested in our business. I'm very excited to announce that by the end of the month, we'll close our seed round, and we're looking for our 5th full-time engineer. That's it.
is Fuel Our Future.
All right, Fuel Our Future is a platform to be able to personalize your health both now and in the future. We aim to make a firm impact with the 20-somethings first. That'll be our first target market. Hopefully through that relationship with them, we'll be able to crowdsource and crowdfund to be able to reach other generations. Our product will be different than other apps or websites that you see now in the healthcare system to improve personal health, excuse me, in the way that we, in the way that we can take the way that the interface that you have with the app and the creativity that you have with it, along with the website, and make a difference with what you do. The other way that we're doing different than the rest of things on the market is that we're actually going to have a philanthropic side of it. We're going to have a movement where we're going to go to each community, city, around the nation, and I'm really sorry, and raise funds and awareness to be able to improve the health of everything in that community. Thank you.
And now we have Health Find Care.
Okay, how many of you love your parents? Not a lot of you, but that's okay. Guess what? They're all getting older, and they're going to need care. And traditionally, there's only two ways to do it. You either put them in a home, or you brought somebody into your house as an agency. Both are expensive. What Health on Care does is we have an online system that walks you through the process of empowering you to getting care in the home. And at the same time, we save you 1/3 of the cost. We can get you care anywhere. We have a network of nurses that will hold your hand and make sure that you get the correct, dependable, reliable, affordable care for you. We're nationwide, we're online. The industry's $284 billion. We want to get 1% to 2% of people that are online. Other than that, we have, right now we have 15 nurses that have been trained. We have 25 people that are going to be engaged in online within 4 weeks. If you need care, go to our website, we'll contact you. Thank you.
Now we have Spot On Sciences.
80% of healthcare decisions are based on diagnostic tests. We have genetics, we have personalized medicine, but to get a blood sample, you still have to drag your butt into a lab to have somebody draw blood from your arm. Our solution is a patent-pending device called HemoSpot. You can take a blood sample anywhere, anytime. Just stick your finger with the lancet, put 2 drops of blood on, goes inside, close it up, that sample dries. Once it's dry, it's stable at room temperature. Scan the barcode on the back with your smartphone. That collects the time, date, GPS location, patient information, send it all through the lab, they get the results, then the results go back to the patient's phone, to the doctor, to the health record. What we're trying to do is bring life-saving access to healthcare diagnostics to everyone. We have sold these all over the world currently.
And now Visible Health.
Dr. Alex and Dr. Todd are both busy urologic oncologists with very anxious patients. Dr. Alex is excellent at educating his patients, leading to more consents, better patient satisfaction, and more time to stay up to date with the latest in medicine and even see more patients. Dr. Todd, like many physicians, not quite this efficient. Boston Scientific, a medical device company, is very interested in helping both Dr. Todd and Dr. Alex be more productive and more successful, because in the long run that helps their business. Enter Visible Health, to help companies like Boston Scientific and other organizations to leverage the Dr. Alex's to the benefit of the Dr. Todds and their patients. With our technology-enabled service, we've produced apps that have created a community of over 40,000 active clinical users, educating and engaging patients in clinics and hospitals around the globe. We're bootstrap funded with 2013 revenues of $450,000. We're looking to triple that again this year.
Now, these physicians.
It's a national imperative to address rural and community health, namely the elderly and the chronically ill. This is an underserved and underrepresented niche in healthcare delivery as of late. By implementing analytics and predictive modeling, we physicians will introduce efficiency, improve quality, and contain costs. You improve patient health, you improve population health. I agree, the government agrees, the public agrees. Meet Physicians is the solution that will improve healthcare at the point of care. Thank you.
And now our last company up in healthcare is CVMA.
SaverMob is fundamentally transforming the delivery of primary healthcare in the developing countries. We operate mobile clinics which provide care on premises to students and employees, low-income students and employees, on a monthly subscription model. We also operate an online health exchange through which internet-savvy patients can get health services like second opinions and video appointments from participating physicians. We are currently serving 4,000 patients in India, each paying $2 a month. We have also cloned the model in Liberia through a licensee. And last month, we won Social Business of the Year award from Intuit and Bloomberg TV in India. If you give us 5 more minutes, we'll show you how to build a scalable and very profitable healthcare business, $2 per person per month. Thanks.
All right, that wraps it up for healthcare. Our final category here is smart cities, and this is a very broad category for us. So this basically means any app, tool, or device that is making city living more efficient, more convenient, or just better. So let's start off with one-to-one giving.
One-to-one giving is the first e-commerce enabled dedicated marketplace for charity. We've surveyed hundreds of charities across the US, and they spend countless hours tracking down deals and discounts on products they need just to run their organizations and make their programs work. The best discount they can get is usually less than 15%. We're focused on targeting 160,000 charities in the US with over $8 billion in spending power. At the same time, brands are being scrutinized by consumers to showcase their impact and how they're doing local impact. So one-to-one giving enables brands like Staples to sell their products at a discount and showcase their impact in the local community with live dashboards. We've baked our margin into the price of the product, and we've streamlined the process, so brands are shipping products directly to the charities that need them. We have 100 charities signed up and ready.
All right, now we have Aunt Bertha software.
Aunt Bertha is a search engine for social services. Since we launched, we've had more than 50,000 users, and we have social workers from more than 200 government agencies and charities that use our search. In the US alone, roughly 1 in 4 people rely on social services every year, although the process is really difficult to find those services, and the foundations that fund them don't have good ways of actually measuring the impact and efficiency. Aunt Bertha connects people to programs through our search, and now governments, charities, and foundations are now paying us to put their logo on our search, as well as to use our back-end processing software. They collect the big data, nonprofits become more transparent, and the entire social services industry becomes more efficient. We have revenue, we have users, and we recently closed on our Series A investment in December. One other thing, we were recently selected as one of 21 TED Fellows for this project. Thank you.
Now we have Local Magnet.
Local Magnet is a lead generation company for service-based businesses like doctors, lawyers, and plumbers. The number one problem for these businesses is finding new clients. We solve this problem through a process called call performance marketing. That means we do all the advertising for those firms. We create the website, we do the pay-per-click, we do the SEO, stuff like that. But the client only pays us when we deliver calls from consumers interested in their services. The benefit to our clients is increased revenue with a crystal clear ROI on their marketing budget. To date, we've generated over 1,000 calls for 10 different types of businesses with over $50,000 in revenue. Our goal is to have at least one client in 200 different types of service-based businesses in each of the 200 largest cities in the US. That would give us over 40,000 paying clients. It isn't sexy, but it makes money. Give me 5 minutes, and I'll tell you what I told you.
All right, next up is Me Too.
We're all busy. We have tons of things that we don't have the time or skill to do ourselves. But currently, when we need help, it sucks. We need a plumber, a painter, a dog trainer, somebody to fix our fence. What do? We go find them. We go search for them. We look on Yelp, Craigslist, Google. The burden's all on us. It makes no sense. I have the money. They're looking for work. Why am I going to them? They should come to me. So I created need2.com. It's simple. Whatever I need, I just post what I need online, and local awesome community people in your neighborhood that can help you just come to you. So just post it, pick the best one, and find it. So far, we're kicking ass in Austin. We have over 8,000 users, growing 20% month over month, have over 2,000 needs posted. I can't wait to tell you in 5 minutes about how we're going to do what like eBay and Amazon did for goods, what we're doing for services. Thank you.
Reaction.
We're not an app. We're not a social media platform or a website that's going to help you browse and find the best matches for blog. We're Reaction. We're an innovative hardware and software company focused on some of the most basic needs for humanity, like shelter. And that's because 32.5 million people are displaced every single year just from natural disasters. This doesn't even begin to account for man-made disaster displacement, like the 10.4 million refugees tracked by the United Nations, or the tremendous commercial influx and interest we've had across a variety of industries for the shelter system. This all combines to an opportunity worth $11.4 billion annually. Our initial product is the EXO housing system, which is a smart polyportable shelter system that is light enough to be moved by hand, strong enough to literally stop bullets, and has more connectivity than your modern American home. This is a product so disruptive that has not only gotten the attention of FEMA, NASA, and Apple, but we have literally sat down with NASA's chief space architects and Jonathan Ive and the design team at Apple. We are the real crazy ones that will change the world.
Next up is Spokefly.
So when you look at the trips that people take every day, there's room for dramatic improvement in short distance transportation. We surveyed over 500 downtown workers and UT students and found 3 key factors at play. The first is that travel time is the most important factor in short trips. Second is that there's not enough options for point-to-point travel, especially at times of peak demand. And the third is that there's no place for people with idle bikes to list their bikes for others to ride, so they're not sitting around collecting dust at home. So the solution that we built is a peer-to-peer bike marketplace where bike owners make money listing their bikes for Spokefly members to ride. Unlike traditional bike share programs, there's no upfront investment in infrastructure and there's no ongoing maintenance cost. So with our platform, bike owners can make money listing their bike, and people can get around with ease, including downtown workers and students. We're Spokefly.
And our last company up is Voter Trove.
So I've worked on campaigns for about 15 years, political campaigns. Every campaign that I've worked on has been somewhere between chaos and a flag-bearing fire. It's a very inefficient operation. For example, say if they want to mine for volunteers, they want to find volunteers to make phone calls for them. Well, Facebook is a great source to do that. But you want to look at the 300 people that commented on a photo, you're only really going to get their names. So do you want to spend 6 hours on whitepages.com looking up every person that interacted with your page to get their phone number? No. So our solution allows, we import the interactions from Facebook right to Voter Trove, where they can be matched to a voter file, which is a central data source, which is going to have their phone number, potentially an email address, or other issues that they care about. So we effectively minimize the time they need to spend doing things that really they shouldn't have to do. We've got incredible traction. We're already in 11 states with 16 clients. We're just honored with the Reed Award, which is the prestigious, from Campaigns and Elections, which is the industry standard magazine.
All right, so that wraps up the 1-minute pitches. Let's just give one more round of applause for all of you guys. So this is what's going to happen now. All the judges are going to go back to where we did mentoring, just behind the crowd, and then you guys are going to get more pizza, beer, wine, whatever else you guys want. Go congratulate the stars for doing an awesome job, and we will see you in about 15 minutes.
But we're doing a lot of things. So we're putting all through recycling right now. It's part of the national project that's $10. But in Austin, yeah, so hopefully we're going to get involved by charities by cities. Right now, we've got it covered down to one city. Another city. Right now, we've got sidebar. We've got public transport. As you say, so basically, we're building a back end to our and then people that are nearby working the services. When we get that API built, everyone knows that company and sign and Santa Monica. So if you're safe and legal, then you have
what is the problem you're overcoming? Every motor building has 100 years.
Everybody you hand this to, make sure you say, make sure you go, it's not
I know, but that's gotta be so. I'm not really thinking about this. Like,
That's what
Not enough to do with the ABX system. Has to bring in a T1 is trying to improve life, especially take the hit. Right there. I like it. Yeah.
That is the job that was brought by the fiber, but the
We'll have to do the marriage again. Hopefully that's a one-time deal. There's a couple of them out there, and I'm my students data now is making
I'm still having to show up and
Take whatever customers do, that's not more than 10, that's
I didn't get that.
Yeah, I'm gonna run that method. I like it. It is a power turbine.
It's always going to get better. It's never going to be true
It's terrible.
Ready to announce the winners, so we'll move on to the final round. Everyone get their last drink and sit down.
My name's Jared.
All right, everybody can take their seats. All right. So to announce the top two for each four categories, I wanted to invite a special guest up to do the announcement. So for those of you who don't know, Austin's already had a winner in the Challenge Cup. So Austin's own Ride Scout.
Make everyone be quiet. Don't talk until they're quiet. Turn the music down. Our audience, you don't talk until they listen.
All right. So Austin has already had a winner in the Challenge Cup. So Austin's own Ride Scout actually won the DC competition in the Smart Cities category. So I thought it'd be fun to invite Joseph from Ride Scout up to actually announce the top two in each category. Let these guys get ready for just a little bit, and then we'll hear some 5-minute pitches.
Thank you, Evan. Congratulations again to everybody that tried this evening. From personal experience, I know how hard it is to do a 1-minute pitch, but then here in a few minutes, when you see them do the 5-minute pitch, how hard it is to transition that into a 5-minute pitch. So congratulations to them in advance. Before I do it, shameless promotion for Austin. Right now, download Ride Scout on your iPhone. Check it out. We've launched in Washington, D.C. We're heading next to San Francisco, but it wouldn't be possible without the fact that Mark, one of the judges up front, was one of my mentors in the Clean Tech Energy Forum. Bob Metcalf was one of our mentors as we moved into Longhorn Startup Camp. Josh Bear is just a mentor to everybody. And we're a member of the Chamber of Commerce. Wow. And I was drinking beer with Kevin right before this started. But in all seriousness, if you're thinking of moving, in addition to having your roots here in Austin, 1776 in Washington, D.C. is creating their own revolution for startups, and the fact that they were so loving and accommodating and supportive of an Austin, Texas company. Despite our cowboy boots and all of our big lifestyles we live, it's really appreciative of 1776. So give them a big hand again. Okay, you didn't want to hear me talk? Here are the winners in each category. In education, give a big hand to Aceable. The second company, Code Arcade. In the category of energy, in carbon. Head-to-head with them is Waterlands. In the very important category of health, e-patient finder. They square off against Spot On Sciences. And my personally favorite category, smart cities. I'll see you guys in May. Number 1 is Reaction Housing. And number 2 is Aunt Bertha. Good luck to everybody.
Hey, thanks, Joseph. It was, we'll give them just a little bit of time here to get ready. Incredibly difficult judging. These were really some remarkably competitive categories. So great job to Austin all around. I think the one thing that's definitely a winner here tonight, if nothing else, is the Austin startup scene. So we're pretty excited to hear these guys get going.
All right, we're going to give these guys 1 minute to prepare. So just give us a minute here, and we'll get everything up.
Yeah.
Is it not?
We're getting there. Working on it.
Hey, N Carbon, are you on Twitter? No.
So let me explain how this is just going to work really quickly. So all of the finalists in each category get 5 minutes. Okay, they're going to tell you more about their company. They're going to tell you how they're going to scale, what traction they have, and then what's going to happen is we have 3 minutes where the judges can ask any question they want. And this is actually my favorite part because you guys get to grill them, which is actually pretty fun. But when the gong goes off after that 3 minutes, you are totally free to continue the answer. You don't have to stop. So answer the question, and as soon as you're done, then that's what ends. Is that cool? Everyone got that? All finalists? Okay, great. Are we ready?
We're getting there.
Okay, we're getting there.
Hold on 1 sec. Yeah. 1 second. A little technical difficulties. Let's get there.
I mean, I'm doing it. I don't know. You're very good. I have no idea. Just use one. It's on each TV is only on one output. You should just switch it.
Is it something down there? Is it that display board down there?
No.
Okay.
Switch it.
There it is. Hooray. Okay.
Is it up?
Good.
All right, cool. There we go. Thanks everyone for waiting. First up is Aceable.
Right.
Thank you. All right, 5 minutes. Let's do this. All right, so I'm Blake Garrett, founder of Aceable, and I know you all had a bit of an introduction that was super, super quick. But big picture, Aceable transforms required education through mobile learning. Now, recently McKinsey came out with a number saying that in 2011, the mobile education market was $3.5 billion, or $3.3 billion. By 2020, that number is expected to grow to $38 billion. This is a tremendous amount of growth that we're all experiencing day to day. Now, within this $38 billion is a vertical, a little niche that I think is really fascinating. It's this idea of required education. the things you have to learn in life to achieve the goals you care about. Now, I mentioned the driver's ed. If you're 15 and want the freedom of your license, you have to take a course. Thank God that course is really, really bad today because we're gonna make it better. But other types of education that you have to take, if you want to become a CPA, you have to take required education. If you want to maintain that license, if you want to maintain to be your doctor or nurse license, you also have to take that. So when I talk about required education, there's 3 areas: pre and post licensure education, or continuing education, as a lot of people talk about. Then you have test prep, GMAT, SAT, all this education that will help you go to the level that you want in your life and your career. That learning is indispensable. And lastly, you have required learning. So collectively, this is a $78 billion market, but I'm going to talk to you today about how we get there first. Meet Aubrey. Aubrey is a 15-year-old that goes to Westlake High. She loves her swim team teammates, Cheesecake Factory, and more than anything in the world, Aubrey wants to drive. All that's standing between Aubrey and driving is required online education that looks like this. This was created in 1996, which is weird to say because 1996 to me doesn't seem that long ago, but it's almost 20 years ago. It is bad, and she has to sit there at her computer and do this. She'd have to be on a screen similar to this for 7 minutes. So how does Aceable come in and save the day for Aubrey? Well, we've actually taken a step back and talked to Aubrey and dozens and dozens and dozens of other Aubreys and Aubrey's parents. And what we've learned is, right now the solution meets the baseline requirements, but we want to be better than that because we're Aceable. So we want to create a solution that's easy to use and easy to understand, that makes a real-world impact. As I mentioned earlier, teens, the highest fatality rate for teens is amongst teen drivers. We want to fit her lifestyle, and this is when we start to get unique. Because fitting her lifestyle means we make the best use of her time and the technology that's just in her hand. We want to make it enjoyable, and what is enjoyable? It's personal, attractive, and fun. And lastly, we want to create an experience that leaves Aubrey feeling smart and powerful. Because that's Code Arcade. So, in short, I'll break down the numbers for you. Driver's ed costs about $100 a student. Getting approved as a driver's ed vendor costs about $15,000. There's 4 million kids in the US this year that'll take driver's ed. So that $400 million market, our marginal cost is almost zero at this point. We have to pay $1 for every $150 course we sell. We can go direct to mobile where our competitors can't, because we're the first to offer online driver's education. We submitted our first course today to the Texas Department of Safety, Public Safety, and in 2 months, we will be the first in the market. We're a Capital Factory-backed company, and we're really excited to be here. Thank you. Questions? Yes.
Do you have any intellectual property that's protectable here?
We have, that is a great question. We have a platform that, I'll be dead honest, if someone wanted to spend 3 months and they looked at ours, they could probably replicate it, but we'll be about 3 months farther. We have content, unlike, we created our own content. We use edutainment. I don't know if you guys played Oregon Trail or We're in the World's Carmen San Diego. We've created content like that. Nobody does that. So we own all that content, and we're just going to continue to hustle and improve. John?
Can you talk to us about what happens when somebody completes the course with this? What's the certification and are you authorized to?
Totally. So I know pretty much everybody in this room probably had a much different experience. But driver's ed now, you have a course requirement that you can still take in a classroom. Some schools don't really offer driver's ed like they used to. Most everybody goes to private vendors. So you take a course, and now you'll be able to take it through our app. That satisfies in Texas and California and Ohio. We'll get to those markets, but right now in Texas, it will satisfy the 32 hours that you have to take in the course. You'll have to do 44 hours of driving practice with your parent or a professional instructor, and after that, you'll be able to go to the DPS, show them the certificate that we've given you, and say, I finished my course, I finished my driving, and you'll become a licensed driver. Help us all. But yes, that's the process.
So are you just focused on high school kids, and what are you doing to sort of capture the market share there?
Sure. So initially, our first product is focused on teen drivers, 15 to 18. That same content can be repurposed very easily for 18 to 25. And then also there's defensive driving. I won't make everyone raise their hands, but if you've gotten a speeding ticket, we'll also offer, Josh, yep, that Tesla's fast. We'll offer that course as well later in the year. To get the market, we have an interesting advantage because we're mobile. And Kevin, I would love to talk to you another time, but our competitors can't advertise with mobile install-based ads in Facebook, targeted at 15-year-olds on iOS devices in Texas. That gives us a really unique advantage. Or between the second and third level of Candy Crush Saga, our competitors in the web-based versions that they offer can't get there today.
Just going to ask about your competitors and what you're facing in the marketplace, the feedback that you've received and the traction that you've made.
Sure. Feedback, I'll start there because I like to answer better than traction. So feedback, we have talked to the DPS and the DMV in California. They are the governing bodies that approve this. Nobody else has mentioned native mobile to them. Talking to these individuals, they are all confused as to why not, considering teenagers spend 3 hours a day in mobile apps. Why would you not offer this solution there? So from that point of view, that's that. From a traction perspective, literally today, it's why I think I stumbled a bit earlier, we submitted our first course to the state. So in 2 months, we will be the first company that has a mobile app that offers driver's education.
How have you validated the potential demand and the customer acquisition cost for that segment?
Sure. So we have, through the history of my company, Aceable, we have 10 mobile apps out there, all related to education. What we learned through, also shameless plug, through the awesome advisors at Capital Factory, was we should focus on required education. So using the tools that we've had out there, we actually have some driver's ed tool apps. So we have driver's ed tool apps that allow them to study for the DMV or DPS driver's ed test. We've run advertising tests with Facebook, and we're down to $2 per install. $2 per install at a 10% conversion rate is $20 per acquisition. At $150 market price, it's a pretty good margin. Thank you. Cool.
Okay. Next up in education, we have Code Arcade.
Good evening. All right, so the main premise of Code Arcade is that you get to play games and learn to code. Anyone here had trouble learning to code or wanted to code and looked at code and said, what is this? That is what we're facing, and that's what we're trying to solve, is get people who want to understand this world and want to become code literate and want to be able to interact with other professionals who are professional developers, maybe you're managing a team of coders, and start with this group of people who's been like, oh, I missed the boat. I didn't take CS classes in college. I didn't get on and learn this stuff. What can I do now? So let me tell you a little bit about what I discovered through 4 years of research, going into high schools, colleges, online programs, software boot camps. Basically, there's part of the world, very, very large part of the world, that's code illiterate. They don't know how to read or write code. It looks like gibberish to them. Then there's another part of the world that's code literate. This is not to scale. I just wanted to show how much money is sitting up here versus how much money is sitting down here. There is 1.4 million jobs by 2020, paying 90K, 6 figures a year, just in this country alone. Right now, 50 million kids in the US don't have access to the education that would get them to those jobs, and we've got 200 million adults in the last 30 years who suffered from job loss and poverty. This is a big problem here in the States, it's a big problem globally. What I've found is that the only reason there's this problem is because people do not understand what to do with code. They look at it and it's a big blank for them. There's syntax, there's jargon, there's a whole world up here that's communicating, and their knowledge is increasing because they're talking to each other because they have a common language. If you do not have that common language, you do not have access to that community. So all we need to do at Code Arcade is solve for this knowledge gap. Help you overcome that initial hurdle of understanding when you look at code, what you're looking at, how to refer to it, how to communicate with others. And then you get access to all the online support mechanisms, you get access to other coders. Now you can actually speak the language of the professional world that's earning this money and getting these jobs. So, I'm not the only one who's looking at this problem. There are a lot of people, both sides of the political aisle have talked about this in the last month. K-12, they don't have the teachers. We have 7% of Texas schools teaching computer science. Higher ed, the curriculum has not evolved in the last 40 years. It's the same curriculum, and it's not getting the job done. You have low enrollment, and it's decreasing enrollment. You have 3,000 computer science graduates out of 42,000 jobs, just here in Texas. 3,000 people to fill 42,000 jobs. It's not adding up. Boot camps, this is a new thing. This is like, hey, we saw that higher ed's not handling this problem. There's 40,000 jobs available. Let's fill those jobs. Problem with boot camps is they're adults only. It's $10,000 plus. You need to interrupt your life. This is not a solution that scales to the vast majority of people, and there's no quality control. Maker Square is a great boot camp just down the road, but for every one Maker Square, I can name 5 others that aren't great, aren't worth the price. So we come to online tutorials. But by the way, boot camps have validated that there are markets here, that people will pay for this. They'll pay up to that much money and more. And online tutorials have done even better. Treehouse is a leading online tutorial. It's one of the people that we're going to draw and siphon users from. They make $1.5 million a month. They have over 35,000 users. And all they've done is marketed through Facebook and Hulu and online forums. And they've already built the business model, the marketing model. We can emulate that model, siphon off their product because we have a better one that's informed by research, that doesn't require teachers, and serves as the training materials. It can do all modern languages because it's modular. We can write one game and teach 8 languages. And just to kind of say where we're at now. Research, 4 years in the field, we've got our solution. We've reverse engineered it from professional practices, so this is real coding practices. This isn't just hello world. And we are seeking currently a chief marketing officer, someone who can start pinpointing the exact market to face. We want 6 months of development, 6 months of beta testing. We're looking for $600K to help us do that. And lead acquisition has been, again, just copying our competitors. It's very easy. So I think we're there. I really appreciate your time today.
I'll do the first one. Yes. Okay, so you hear about this and the idea of like, take learning and make it fun by making it a game, and sounds great. Right. So, but it kind of the critical hinge of all this is that it's actually fun.
Right.
So prove to me that your game is fun.
So without the game here to hand to you, what I can say is numbers. If you have the engagement numbers that Candy Crush has, you've got something. You're capturing attention. Whether you want to believe Candy Crusher is engaging or not. No, but we have the tests set up to run and find those numbers and see how close we are to that.
So has anybody used it yet? And like,
yes, we've had dozens of people use it, and we've shown that they're engaged throughout their entire usage of it. But these are paper prototypes. I want to do one better than that and put it online so it's accessible.
So you showed there were 250 million people who needed to learn how to code.
In the U.S. alone, I would say, yeah.
And then you showed there were 1.4 million jobs available.
Yep.
What about the other 248.2 million people?
Well, what about all the support jobs for those 1.4 million coders?
Right. So you're arguing there's more than 1.4 million jobs.
Right. I'm just saying let's fill those first because those are definitely.
I think you should fix the slide.
Okay. I'll go back and fix it. Good feedback.
You've done a good job articulating what you're doing. I think that obviously from the Converse perspective, you hit that well. We have a lot of unfulfilled talent, and you can address that. Tell me, compared to national or other companies that are doing the same thing? How do you differentiate yourself?
Well, again, we want to prove that those engagement numbers. The same thing that Josh was asking about in terms of, look, we're going to take one of their modules and we're going to take one of our modules, and we're just going to compare them, run an efficacy study, show here with our module, our game, the users are this more engaged. We can see from the eye tracking that we've done that they're actually focusing on the right elements. They can interpret the jargon better, and we just want to prove that. That's our next step in terms of showing that differentiation between.
Okay, I'm not trying to give you a hard time, but I think this is a really important point. So, have you ever built anything fun before?
Myself?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Like, did you have a track? So, what have you done? Like, how do you have experience building this kind of stuff? I just think that's like
not in the startup community.
No, that's okay. But like, I just feel like that's the crux of this. Is like the whole thing doesn't work unless the game's actually fun. So, does your team have that kind of experience? Have you guys built games or other things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. My chief engineer has built mobile games before. We have game designers and advisors that we're constantly interacting with and asking them for feedback on. We want to make this fun. That's our goal. That's what we're hitting. So that's our target. That's how our research is going to drive.
Okay. Are you going to teach Ruby on Rails or the only true programming language, Python?
Python. Of course, Python. Python's number 2. We're doing Java first and then Python, but it doesn't take that much to port from language to language. So.
You talked about all these jobs, $90,000 to $90,000 plus. Do you have any validation from the employers who have those jobs that they're going to hire someone who's been through your class, who maybe knows how to code, instead of a computer science grad who knows how to code and knows everything else about this? Any validation about that?
Yeah, we've seen some internships and apprenticeships crop up throughout the country at places, development houses, big companies. They want people so desperately that they're like, hey, we'll take them even if they don't have 4 years of experience anymore, because we need to actually get them trained up in our own system and go through that process. As my work as a learning scientist, I was also looking at corporate training and those kinds of educational policies they have there. It's an easy way to say, look, here's where they're at when they pass through our system, when they've completed our game, and this is what they need, and we can give that to them as a package. We could possibly even upsell them in terms of a training package in corporate. So there's a step-by-step process, and we can get them this far, and that's where we're seeing is really where it's useful to employers and to coworkers.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, everybody.
Category, and the first one up is N-carbon.
Go.
Great.
So as I noted earlier, our team, I don't know if this is, can you guys hear?
Yes.
Great. So actually, one thing I wanted to do before that was actually introduce myself, which I didn't have a chance to do last time. It was only 1 minute. So my name's Todd Davidson. I'm the CEO and co-founder of N-carbon. As I told you earlier, our team, while working at UT Austin, has invented a new form of carbon. It's this three-dimensional porous structure, which you kind of see here. Kind of looks like a fishing net. What we are doing is taking this material, this extraordinary material that has extremely high surface area, and form it into electrodes for supercapacitors. We then sell those electrodes to existing suppliers of supercapacitor devices that then they sell it on to the Mazdas of the world. And quite frankly, they could sell it to anything in the world. As I noted earlier, these things are going into the grid, they're going into power electronics, they're going into a whole variety of stuff. Quite frankly, I view it as we can produce a whole bunch of energy in this world, but we have to get much smarter on how we manage it. And that's what we're helping do. So this is our beachhead market. It's what we call microhybrids, and it's the most efficient way of saving fuel for any hydrocarbon-based fuel car. It does have applications in electric vehicles and fuel cells, etc., but this is a massive growing opportunity that is our beachhead that we'll be addressing first. Microhybrids operate by giving the car the ability to turn the engine off every time it's coasting or stopped. There's no reason to be running your engine while you're sitting at a stoplight. It has the highest return on investment for saving fuel. I'll reiterate that. We're talking about a 10% fuel saving for only a few $100s worth of hardware being installed in the car, as opposed to, say, $20,000 for batteries. Now, I love the Tesla. I had a chance to drive it. It's an incredible car. But there's also a huge market out there for hydrocarbon-based fuels. 50% of vehicles in Europe right now are micro-hybrids. The projections show us that there's going to be a huge, huge market for this in the future, which is basically make these things even better so we can reduce emissions and we can make everything way more efficient. This results in tens of millions of cars annually that need this technology, a $2.4 billion market. After we address this market, we'll then begin to provide supercaps or electrodes for supercapacitors to the future of electric vehicles, which will eventually be fuel cells and even make the Teslas of the world even better. The problem right now is that supercapacitors have limited capacity. This is the 2014 Mazda 6. It's driving on the road today. It carries 6 supercaps. We're improving the capacity with our new material that we call N-carbon. It increases the energy density of the system by 3x. And if you're not aware of the electrical energy storage world, that is a huge deal. This is a complete step change in performance for supercapacitor devices. A lot of this work came out of the Ruoff Group at the University of Texas, years and years of pioneering. In fact, Ruoff is recognized as the 16th most impactful material scientist of the last decade in the entire world. Drs. Ruoff and our CTO, Dr. Stoller, were awarded the 2011 World Technology Award for Energy. We have 3 pending patents that we've licensed from the University of Texas for this work. Quick idea on how we make money. Using the Maxwell system as an example, they would need to install 6 devices at a total cost of $120. Because we have 3 times the amount of energy, they would only need to install 2 devices at a total cost of $70. So the bottom line is we put more energy in a smaller volume at a lower cost. Now, I know the text is small here, so let me just quickly walk you through it. Our company was founded roughly 4 months ago by myself, Dr. Stoller. We both were doctoral students at UT Austin. We then partnered with Rod to make this company work. We joined ATI. We were then awarded a grant from Austin Energy. Soon after that, we signed our license with UT Austin for the 3 pending patents. We've been awarded a grant from SBIR to further commercialize this work. We're going to begin customer testing here in the next couple months, then get customer commitments by the end of this year, begin pilot production beginning of 2015, and begin scaling up and ramping our product by the end of next year. Now, something I want to emphasize is that we sell these electrodes over to these guys. They're right now selling these things, but they're only selling them at a margin of about 30%. We're going to give them the ability to increase those margins to 40%, and we're going to earn about 57% gross margins on our electrodes and achieve $60 million in revenue in roughly 7 years. So with that, I want to stop. I think I've got 10 seconds, but might as well not leave the clock down.
Yeah, so how have you validated, so you talk about the potential demand, buying, all of this stuff. Have you validated that you have first customers ready to go and the price point should be able to sell at?
So, good question, because it hinges on, everything hinges on whether or not the customer is going to purchase it. The customers, we speak of these devices in the terms of farads. It's basically the amount of capacitance in each device. And they currently purchase at a price of 1 cent per farad. That is the standard by which they're willing and able to purchase at. We, in all of our modeling, keep at that standard for how we're going to know what price they're going to purchase at. And so the margins that I just described, the 57% margins, are based on that standard. Now the reality is that we're delivering a vastly superior device. And so we may actually be able to make much more than 57% gross margins. To give you a quick idea.
Battery companies usually take $200, $300, $400 million. How much money do you need?
So we need $3 million between now and the end of 2015. We then need $5 million in 2015, or 2016 rather, at the beginning of 2016. So we need about $8 million to set up facilities here in Central Texas. The hardware, the capital intensity of actually making this powder is extremely low. We're talking about basically a 12-foot rotary kiln. Imagine just a basically hot furnace that's spinning and churning out this activated carbon. We can find those used for about $50,000. So the price here to make this stuff is actually very low. Assembling the electrodes is a little more expensive, but up front, we won't be, immediately scaling to this huge plant. Quite frankly, the way that we've figured it out is that we can be profitable by roughly 2019, 2018, and be at that point basically funding organic growth. And actually, let me emphasize 2018, because that 2019 was based on previous estimates of how much money was going to cost for us to scale up. We have discovered that the price for the electrode manufacturing is not nearly as much as we actually originally anticipated. So this is not complicated battery manufacturing in that sense. These are much simpler devices than typical chemical batteries like lithium-ion batteries.
Question. You talk about how it's being done now, how much it costs for people to buy these things now. You talk about what you're going to do. I've seen a lot of presentations about this kind of material. Who are your most frightening competitors, and how do you beat them?
So, one thing I should note, there are no competitors that have shown anywhere near this type of performance, is the first thing to note. There are plenty of competitors. The space is defined by 5–10% marginal improvements. People, in fact, we were told by the CTO of an ex-manufacturer or former CTO of a manufacturer of supercapacitors that a 20% improvement would be a massive game-changing deal. We're talking about a 300% improvement here that we're offering. It's a complete step change. The competitors that are out there are a few small competitors. There's actually one in Ukraine, there's one in California, but still, their measurement of performance, we're talking maybe 50% improvement in performance. It's really not even the same ballpark.
Thank you.
Next up in the energy category, we have Waterlands.
Good evening. I'm Keith Cole, CEO and founder of Waterlands, rapid testing of fluids at the well site in a matter of minutes. There's no secret, hydraulic fracturing takes a lot of water to accomplish, 3 to 5 million gallons of water per frac. There are 2,200 fracs per month in the US alone. That's about 160 billion gallons of water a year. Traditionally, when the water gets pumped down, you flow back the hydrocarbons. A lot of the water comes back with it depending on the formation. Some of it gets stuck down in there back into the pores of the rock, but a lot of it does come back in a lot of formations. That water has been historically re-injected back down into saltwater disposal wells, taken completely out of the Earth's life cycle forever. Wasted, gone, that fresh water is history. So as a result, recycling has become, and reuse has become a major part of our industry. Companies all over, like I mentioned before, Rockwater and OmniWater, are working on how do you recycle water and reuse it on a frac so you keep recycling, you never take it out of the system. You also reduce the pressure on the environment and that 160 billion gallons of water you took every year before today. So fracs are also mostly water. 98 to 99% of what you put down that hole is actually water and sand. But it's to the right, it's this 1 or 2% of chemicals that are highly sensitive to what's actually in the water. If you have not enough scaling agent, you can scale out the well. You precipitate ions out of this solution, they actually will clog up the well. You have anti-corrosion, iron, manganese. Things will corrode your pipe. You've got to replace it, re-drill it. There's lots of things you need to do. So what's in the water actually affects the quality of frac and how much oil and gas you can get out of a frac. Fully one third of the wells in the United States for fracking are non-economically productive, and another 1/3 are marginally economically productive. So we're really only talking about 1/3 of the wells we drill are actually any good. And one of the main reasons, this is a picture of scale. This is what happens when you don't control the scale in the water that you pump down the hole. It actually covers the face of the formation, plugs those pores, sometimes forever. So the problem is your water changing. Gone are the days of you using rivers and streams. Again, the pressure on the freshwater system. Nobody wants to have their fresh water go down hole and lost forever. So as we reuse water, your water's always changing. If you're on a frac site in Pecos, Texas, they were taking water from one frac site, dumping it in a big retention pond, treating it, pumping it back down a new frac next door right to it. That process is happening, so if your water is constantly changing, you need to be testing it constantly. You need to have a rapid test for that. So what have they been doing historically? Outside labs, sending it out, spending millions of dollars, shipping water around the country, trying to get it tested. They can't wait days for that. The fracs move too fast. So they took chemistry kits and they put them in little toolboxes like that on the bottom right. You're still doing the same thing. You're mixing and stirring, making reactions, looking at your watch. Is it done yet? Lots of points of error and very complicated. The average roughneck cannot be a chemist, and they're trying to turn him into one. It doesn't work. Water lids, simple, safe, easy to use. You basically we freeze dry our chemistry down into these little strips, these 8-well strips. If you've ever been to biotech, you've seen 96 well plates. We use a 96 well plate frame. You clip these in there. You can do 12 tests in a couple of minutes, and everyone in this room can do this test, including my 10-year-old daughter. Well, she's not here, but she can do it too. In fact, one of my favorite stories, we were at Rockwater, and first they had their chemists from their lab, and I showed them the test. Their jaws dropped, and they smiled ear to ear. And I said, what's going on? This is so simple. Our guys are going to love it. They're going to hug you because it just is that tedious in the field. So safe, fast, easy to use. Regulation, it's here to stay. This is the first time in my 25-year history of doing business that regulation will actually be good for my company. It will actually help. The EPA is trying, they've been trying to regulate fracking. They'll eventually figure it out. In the meantime, the state's EPAs are doing that, the TCEQ here in Austin. Regulation is increasing. They are mandating lots of testing around the wells. It will only increase. We have an all-star team. Grown, started, turned around lots of companies across different industries, mainly oil and gas. Justin Drania, to my right in this picture, is our PhD. He studied under the inventor at the University of Texas, the pioneer of this technology, which is Dr. Eric Ansel on the bottom left. We also have Dr. Jim Holcomb, an analytical professor at UT, as an advisor as well. Next to Justin is Tyler West, a brilliant young graduate from UT, and he's been very instrumental with Justin creating the chemistries that we have today. And then at the bottom right, last but not least, is John Ely. He is the flat-down guru of hydraulic fracturing. He consults all across the world. He's the hardest working 7-year-old I've ever met in my life. He's in Australia, China, Europe, consulting with all the major companies, left and right. And he's not only an advisor, he's our very first investor. He saw that this would change the industry and he put his money down. High volume, as I mentioned before, high margin, high volume, takes a buck or two to make these, you sell them for hundreds. But let me zero in. You always see these hockey stick projections, but right here, we can do that with our existing pipeline of customers and partners in 2014. And this is just the beginning. I haven't talked about fracs internationally, drilling internationally, or in the US, petrochemicals or refineries. There's huge markets left. Thank you.
I think I'll start real quick. We have amazing water in Austin. We're very fortunate. We take it for granted. What are some of the obstacles you're facing and what you're trying to achieve?
I think it's the adoption curve, right? Early stage technology. The oil and gas industry is famous for being very, very slow to adopt technologies. Thankfully, there are companies who need what we have. Boron was our first product. And just today, I got another email from Baker Hughes saying, we need your boron test. It's got a lot of pull demand. For those who see the value and need it, he said, I can't wait for that chemistry kit, that 45-minute test for boron. I don't have time for that. Thousands of gallons have gone down the hole by the time I get my answer. So we need those early adopters to do the typical adoption process. And then that will lead to the rest.
On the, you talk about the box that's got the kit that the Roughnecks use. What is the scariest competitor you're facing out there right now? How do they do it, and how do you beat it?
I mean, the scariest competitor is actually somebody I don't know who's out there trying to do the same thing. Because right now, we're the only chemistry that can do nasty frac water. There's lots of ways to test drinking water. Lots of companies try and do it. There's some rapid testing out there for third world countries, disaster relief, things like that, drinking water standards. But nobody's focused on frac water. 200,000 parts per million of dissolved solids. How do you find the 5 parts of boron or the 100 parts of iron? We find needles in haystacks. So my biggest fear is there's somebody out there, there's got to be, right? That's just the way this world works. Somebody's trying to do what we're doing. We need to get there first. Thank you very much.
All right, so now we move on to the health category. The first company is ePatient Finder.
Thanks, everyone. I'd like to start off by thanking the judges for inviting us back. We really appreciate this opportunity. And that was the wrong button. All right, so we thought we'd start out And you don't have to raise your hands or anything, but just think back to the last time you went to your doctor, whether for yourself or for a loved one. Were you absolutely positive that that doctor knew of all of the advanced treatment options that were available out there that might help you? Most probably not. Now, that's not a stressful situation for just the patient. That's not a good situation for the doctor either. The doctor got into this industry because he wants to help people, and he wants to help each and every one of his patients. But to learn about new treatments and to keep up with the advanced treatments that are even still in clinical trials or just recently released, that takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of energy. And they're having pharma reps pounding down their doors and the pharma reps are getting regulated away, but they are unable to keep this information top of mind. They might even learn of a new treatment, but the difficulty is after seeing 50 patients a day for 2 weeks, when that patient who would actually really benefit from this treatment shows up, will they remember? Now, the third stakeholder in this entire ecosystem are the companies that are actually developing these treatments. So the companies that are developing these treatments are facing an enormous bottleneck in clinical trials. 86% of all clinical trials run behind because of patient recruitment delays. And the startup costs to market a new drug are enormous. This is the problem that ePatient Finder aims to solve. And we do this through a game-changing platform. What we have is a platform where our clients, the pharma companies, medical device manufacturers, can go on and publish information about their clinical trials, drugs, procedures, etc. And then our community of physicians, both primary care as well as specialists, can go onto that platform and learn about these new treatments. But we don't stop there. If we stop there, it's just a Wikipedia with a whole bunch of health treatments. It's not very useful. The really cool part about our technology and our platform is that it actually integrates with the physician's electronic health record. So what happens is the physician is able to go in, see a new treatment that maybe has a very small addressable market, maybe only helps 20,000 patients in the entire country, but the doctor sees it and he believes in it. He can click a button, and with that one click of a button, we're going to return back to him a list of patients that we think will actually benefit from this treatment. Now, at that point, the doctor is able to conduct some outreach to that patient, collect a little bit more information, sit down with the patient, have a conversation about this treatment alternative where the old treatments, the standard of care, might not have been sufficient or might have failed. Have that conversation, and if they both agree together that this is a good opportunity for the patient, then the doctor can either refer the patient over to a clinical trial, to a specialist, or can actually prescribe the drug in the case of a drug. Now, a couple of key business points for this model. We never charge the physicians a dime. This is all provided completely for free to physicians. The pharmaceutical companies and the medical device manufacturers actually pay us to list on the platform. So this way we're able to access the most patients and help as many patients as possible. And what this leads to is a win-win-win scenario.
Hi, I'm Tom Dorsett, co-founder of ePatient Finder. So we've got a very unique model that creates the win-win-win scenario TJ was talking about. The patients benefit heavily because they get these new treatment opportunities where otherwise they wouldn't have had them before. In many cases, also patients are compensated for their time and their participation. So it's not costing them if they have to be away from work or any of those other scenarios. That's very important to them. Our physicians benefit mostly because they're able to keep these treatments top of mind awareness. They're cutting edge. Otherwise, it would be pretty much impossible for them to keep up with everything going on. It creates a certain prestige, and what we found is that they've actually developed a certain amount of pride participating with the ePatient Finder network. We're very proud to be ourselves building that into our brand. In addition, the physicians are able to strengthen the relationships with their patients. If you can imagine, you've got a chronic disease, and your physician's office calls you one day and says your physician's been looking into new treatments, has become aware of one that could benefit you heavily. Would you like to find out more information about that? To TJ's point earlier, it simply doesn't really happen, but with ePatient Finder, it finally does. And so that strengthening of the relationship is very important for the physicians. Obviously, with our life science clients, it's tremendously beneficial. Not only are they able to fill their trials very quickly,
Well, there you go.
what do you do if the drug doesn't work? And what about placebos?
Placebos are part of clinical research. They have to exist. The patients that participate are very aware of their existence. And if the drug doesn't work, our physicians aren't necessarily part of the informed consent process. They're merely performing, very important pre-screening activities for which they're compensated. But patients going in are aware that there is the potential of adverse events.
So it looks like, you have a model where a doctor is incentivized to feel good to search for solutions, and pharmaceutical companies are paying you to have solutions listed. Do you think that's almost like a conflict of interest? Doctors are already oversubscribed here in the US. What doctor kind of has the time to Google search within your platform for solutions for their patients?
So that's a great question. And that conflict of interest is a very important thing that we have done our best to address. There are a couple of really important things that we do to make sure that we eliminate as much conflict of interest as possible, or make sure it doesn't come up. Number one is that the physician is never, ever financially motivated by the pharmaceutical company for referring a patient or for prescribing a drug. That is explicitly outside of anything that we will ever touch. The other thing that we do is it's always under the physician's control. So if the physician wants to join a treatment and says, yes, I believe in this new drug, it's going to help my patients with chronic heart disease, and I've talked to my colleagues, I've talked to other doctors, and I really believe that this is going to help, he is the one who chooses whether or not to run the query on his database. He's the one who chooses whether or not to join the program or to refer the patients. We never do that for him.
Validation question. You say the pharmas are going to be paying you for this. Oftentimes you'll find more than one pharma who's trying to develop a cure for the same thing. Do you have any validation from talking to the pharmas that they're willing to pay you when they're going to be listed with their competitors on this listing? What's their reaction?
That's an interesting question. So we have something similar with medical devices. So similar to pharma, but with Boston Scientific, and they already are. They're already paying us to list. So that's a reality right now. The second thing is a lot of them believe in these treatments. Pharma's, yes, I understand big pharma has this perception of they're money grubbing and that's all they care about is money and not treating the patients. But the people who are there, and we interact with these people every day, they care about the patient. They believe that their treatment is going to help them, and they believe that the doctor is going to want to prescribe their drugs to patients that helps the most. And that's the most important thing here.
I knew it was coming. Josh, do you want to ask a question?
Well, I just have one more quick question. Actually, Bob had asked this earlier when we were chatting, and I think it's a good one. Can you just talk about the size of the market? Because I just don't have a good feel for, I'm sure there's lots of patients that want treatments, but how many of them, are the treatments that aren't out yet? It seems like that's a small number of patients and a small number of...
We're focused on a certain subset of clinical trials. There's about 17,500 running at any given time, in any given year. However, we're not going out and working with just any trial. We have a specific profile. It's late phase to where there's some medical benefit to the patient. It also addresses chronic conditions, diabetes, COPD. As TJ mentioned earlier, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, MS. It has to have medical benefit or the physicians aren't going to be interested in participating. And so that's
where making the market smaller now. So
fair enough, but it's still a very large market. We're still talking about 5,000 to 6,000 trials running at any given time, which each would represent $1 million or more dollars to us.
Okay.
And sorry, Josh, just to add one last thing there. It's not limited to just clinical trials, right? So the same exact process, the same exact technology. We can list new drugs on there that are FDA approved. We can list procedures on there. We actually have an FDA approved procedure on there. So that greatly expands the size of the market because we don't have to do just clinical trials.
That's the program that we're running with Boston Scientific, where we're getting great traction.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Next up in the health category, we have Spot on Sciences.
Hi, I'm Jeanette Hill, founder and CEO of Spot on Sciences. As I mentioned before, 80% of healthcare decisions are based on diagnostic tests. We have all these great new technologies. We have genetics, we have personalized medicine. But to get a blood sample to do these tests, we are still doing centuries-old technology, venipuncture. You have to drag your butt to a lab, wherever you're at, get somebody to draw your blood from your arm. It just doesn't work with today's modern medicine. This is a pain for us. I mean, I hate missing my morning coffee when I have to do a fasting blood test. You're late for work, you miss your meetings, but it's really critical for the people who need it the most. These are the elderly, the homebound, people who are sick, people in a village in Africa. So our solution is called HemoSpot. We have an international patent pending on that. We're in the national phase right now. It's basically a way to take a blood sample from home, from the beach, from anywhere, by yourself. You simply stick your finger with the lancet. We provide a kit that has all the pieces you need. Stick your finger, put 2 drops of blood on the device. It goes into the small hole in the center and goes directly into the center of this fan form. And then the blood spreads out equally on each one of these blades. Then you close the device up, and there's a drying agent or desiccant inside, and that dries the sample. So once the sample is closed, it keeps it dry, it keeps it clean. You can ship it through the mail. You can run over it with a truck. Literally, it will survive that. So to track the sample, then you read the barcode on the back with the smartphone, and that collects a time, date, GPS location of where you took that sample, patient information. Then that will go to a lab. You send the device to a lab. You can put it in the mail. Regular mail will do it. The post office has done their best to damage these things, but you can literally run over it with the truck and they couldn't even damage it. Once the lab then gets it and gets the results, they can send those results directly back to your phone. They can send it to your doctor. They can send it to your health records. Once the lab gets it, they take out this filter paper sample, and from each one of these blades, we call them blades or flower petals or pieces of a wheel or pie, you can do different types of tests with each one of these. So say one blade, you can do a DNA test or an RNA test. Another one, you can look at your hormone levels. Another one, you can look at your antibodies. And then if you have a virus, you can measure the virus from that. This technology is based on newborn screening, is how most people know it. It's called dried blood spot technology. This is where almost all newborn infants are used this test. They stick the infant's heel, put it on a piece of filter paper, and now that the technology just within the last few years has gotten so much better. Did I do that?
I don't think you did.
Ashley's going to fix it right now.
Okay, not a problem. You can do, just from a quarter-sized spot of blood, you can do about 30 or 40 tests. It's just incredible. I'll just keep going. Our advantage really is what we did is take that technology. Why can't we use that for the rest of us? And so what we did is develop this device. It just makes it very easy, foolproof to get a blood sample from any location. You can do this at the beach. You can do it, in a village in Africa. You can do it at home with dog hair in your kitchen. It's going to keep the sample clean. It's very easy to take. And you don't need any infrastructure. You don't need refrigeration. Once that sample is dry, it's stable at room temperature for a long period of time. So you can ship it. You can set it on your bench top. And so that's really our advantage, just making it very easy to get a sample. So we have these all over. So it's a very simple concept, but it is very powerful. There's many different uses for it. We solve pain points in many multi-billion-dollar markets.
Go up to the computer again. You got to hit play on the computer again.
There we go. All right.
You're back up.
Okay, no problem. So right now we have devices all over the world. For instance, right now they're being used in Scotland and remote islands. These people that are diabetic, they have trouble coming from from these islands to get their blood tested. We have ones all over Africa right now doing HIV, especially for infant and new mothers screening and whether their treatment is working or not. In the U.S., we have, for clinical trials, We have wellness testing. We're doing a really cool study with a doctor in Spain for cardiovascular disease. You really need to take a blood sample right when you get out of bed and then measure it throughout the day to really figure out if you're likely to have a heart attack or not. There's no way to do that for venipuncture if you have to go to a lab. So our device for the first time allows that. We have a great team. I have a PhD in organic chemistry and over 20 years experience in pharmaceutical research. My team has many, many years in relevant experience in clinical science. We are funded by DARPA. They've given us a really nice SBIR grant.
Question here. How much does it cost you to manufacture each unit, and then how much are you selling it for? Can you talk more about the revenue model?
Yeah, so right now we've just done our first scale up, so we've got 10,000 units, so it's still pretty small. It's costing us a little over $2 right now. We will be able to get that down to about $1 in the next 100,000 round. We're selling it, we are getting price pressure. A venipuncture costs about $20 to do. So we thought we could, kind of compete that and do about half, but especially in developing countries, boy, they want the cost almost nothing. So we're finding our sweet spot is probably around $8. So it's still a good margin.
A good question for you. With like aging populations in third world countries that don't actually, either they have the access to the technology or they don't know how to use it or aren't as familiar with it, what's your strategy for marketing to those folks who might not necessarily use the app and all that stuff?
So in developing countries, and it's kind of the same for, this is also good for crisis areas, so a hurricane, you need to take a lot of samples in a low resource area. So if the patient themselves doesn't have the phone, probably the idea is to have a health aide that goes around to the village and collects these samples, put them in their backpack, and then deliver them to the lab. So you don't actually have to have that high-tech lab there on site. That's a huge issue when they don't have electricity and all. So it really lets them get that information. And then the health aide might have the phone or the mobile app, and then they can just send that back to them and they can deliver the information.
Two questions. One is, what blood tests can't you do after the desiccation?
So about 90% of the current tests you can do. What you do is just take one of these blades, elute it off in a water or buffer, and then it pretty much fits into the regular workflow. So about 90% of the tests. The only ones you can't do are ones that take a whole cell, and because it destroys the cell. So that includes like the CBC, the way that they're doing that now, but they're coming out with new ways to do that. So.
And when the samples are in the mail, are they anonymous?
They are. And the post office does not have any restrictions. They consider this non-hazardous. So we do have a biohazard symbol on it, but all you have to have it is inside an enclosed container, which ours is, and then inside another envelope.
So you're really disrupting the way that blood tests are taking. What's next for you in terms of distribution and how you go to your next milestone?
So right now we're doing direct sales. We've got a lot of testing done, and in a lot of these cases there's a lot of lead time to get these, show that the test works, and a lot of regulation in this. So that's what we're doing right now. We have many different markets. Anybody who needs a blood sample, I think that was one of our problems, is there's too many markets. So we really narrowed it down to the first adopters, the ones that we think can do it quickly. Those are molecular diagnostics, so like virus testing and also wellness testing.
Smart Cities category, the final category, and our first up is Android software.
Thanks, everybody. So I want to talk a little bit about the size of the problem. My name is Aaron Graham, the founder. So in the US alone, roughly 75 million people interact with either government or charitable services every single year. To give you a little bit of context, the food stamp program is 46 million people. 1 in 6 adults, 1 in 4 children are enrolled in that program, as well as your local charities that do food pantries, subsidized housing, subsidized education programs, after-school programs, things like that. I spent a good part of my life, 6 years, working on the back-end administration of these programs. 4 of those years with the Texas Health and Human Services Commission, helping to streamline the way people apply for and receive the food stamp program, the Medicaid program, the TANF program, and the CHIP program. So I learned a lot about that process, but more personally, I learned the perspective of somebody trying to navigate for a person who is mentally disabled as a result of brain damage. So I was my mom's legal guardian. So I understood this when I went through that period of time. She's doing well, she's in a good place. But I spent a long time actually working on this part and actually understanding the problem. There's actually 2 big problems with this. The first is, when you reach a life event or a crisis event, that could be finding out you have a disease, a relative has a disease, you lose your job, whatever it may be, the process of finding those services is very difficult. You do a Google search, it's messy. Try typing in social services or help pay my bills or whatever it may be. It's not structured search, it's text-based search. It's really, really bad. The other part is actually getting enrolled. And those of you that follow the news recently know that these back-end systems are very complicated. There's a lot of eligibility rules that are tough. That can be complicated as well. We try to attack at a micro level this part and at a macro level this part. And I'm going to talk you through that. We built the search. I built it myself. Started in 2011 and built the first version that in just a couple of seconds with a zip code, it actually pulls in the government and charitable programs from your area. The search works in every zip code in the United States. And we acquired all of that data through a series of technology, through a series of data entry, and built out that process. And in fact, we actually designed our own taxonomy for taxonomizing human services. And we published that at our site, openeligibility.org. We've had some really good adopters so far. In fact, I actually went to the Office of Science and Technology Policy at the White House, working with the White House Fellows, where they're implementing for a small project our taxonomy, which is really, really exciting. That was a project that Google.org was also undertaking. So our business model basically can be summed up on this screen. We provide a powerful free search to what we call seekers, and those are any one of the 75 million people that are in these situations. Also the people that help them, brothers, sisters, relatives, social workers. That's free. We, through a series of batch jobs and whatever else we can do, rolling the sleeves up, data entry, crowdsourcing, a bunch of stuff that I don't have time to get into, we index all of those in an object-based search. So you sort of heard of the Google Knowledge Graph. It's a similar approach, and that's how we render those. And then a lot of those agencies, just checking the time real quick, don't have ways of processing these types of applications. So they're intaking a lot of different people. They're still on a paper-based system. So what we actually sell is 2 things. One is we sell a white-labeled search to these agencies that want to put their logos on a search but also want to see that data, which I'll get to. We also sell a back-end application processing software to these agencies. So they have an online SaaS way of accepting those applications online. Jumping in a little bit, what we're seeing in terms of sort of our goal of healthy cities is pretty phenomenal. We're seeing in real time what people are searching for. Every click is tracked. We're seeing trends that in answers to questions that we never thought to even ask. And here's an example. Because we're indexing all of the programs in Texas, by running a simple report, we know that there's, of the 226 food pantries in the city of Houston, just running a quick search will show us that only 3 are open on Sunday. We're able to take that data, and foundations are interested in that data, so they can actually improve the health of the city and figure out what needs to be funded and who's more effective. Our goal in real time is to know the exact health of what people are searching for. Just to close up, we got our first 10 customers more recently, and the white label product is really taking off. We have a proposal out there that is very close to being signed that will roll out the largest city in the United States. So thank you. I'd be happy to take your questions.
Where did the name come from, Aunt Bertha?
Good question. So Aunt Bertha is, so when I was thinking of a name for a startup, I did not want sort of the techie sounding startup. In the human services industry, it's kind of boring, so I wanted a comfortable figure for our searchers. If we succeed in search, we will succeed in other areas, so I wanted something people would remember. There's also a play on Uncle Sam, so Aunt Bertha picks up where Uncle Sam leaves off. It's the friendly family member we've all had.
You had talked about what kind of activity or what kind of labor it took to build this database. Are you going to have to do customization for basically every market you want to enter So I'm just wondering how long it's really going to take you if the United States, for example, is your market. How much time and money is going to take you to create this database?
Sure. So we're roughly 1/12 of the way there towards our goal of acquiring that data. So what we're doing search for is actually direct-facing human service programs, which can fit to the schema that we've developed. So the jobs that we have built can actually pull the descriptions and those other things. We do not go as deep, for example, in the medical space. So we want to know if there's a program that serves a certain type of cancer, we will pull in the descriptions of the programs, the offices, all of the commonalities amongst all of those programs. We're not going to be a very, very, very deep sort of search to sort of an infinite level, but it's basically allowing people to get the programs they need at that moment. And so to follow up on that question, sorry, for the product that we actually that we also sell, which is the intake management, that's configurable towards what's on the application, so the agencies can decide which questions they want themselves through a drag and drop process.
So talk a little bit about two things. One is I see 56,000 plus users. Talk a little bit more about traction and revenue, and then given your current business model, what do you see the size of the addressable market for Incubator being?
Sure. We basically haven't done any advertising. We literally sort of bootstrapped most of the way until we just recently closed. So we have been published in Mashable, blurb in the New York Times, just all from word of mouth. The TED actually helped with that. Imager, also Reddit, things like that. So we were able to get the user traction completely organically through local news as well. On the customer front, every single one of our customers have been inbound leads. We haven't done any outbound marketing at all. So we have a healthy pipeline from warm introductions from people on our network. Where can this go? We believe that in year 5, according to our forecasts, we could be north of $40 million a year in revenue. There's roughly 1.4 million governments and charities in the United States who all represent potential customers. They provide these types of services. Roughly, so in terms of the market, roughly $11 billion is spent on the process of taking in applications every single year. The program I used to work on was in Texas was roughly a $500 million project over the course of 5 years, to give you some context, and that was one program.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so our last startup to present for the night is Reaction.
Howdy. So I'm just going to jump into the slide really quick because we know we're the kind of oddballs here, and a lot of people don't know the space because this market is just something that has been completely overlooked. So we'll start off with what we call the housing gap, and essentially this is kind of our sweet spot, or the kind of niche area that we started with, and I'll show you how we expanded from there. But essentially right now, what a lot of people don't realize, here in the United States, it takes on average about 90 days for a FEMA trailer to show up post-disaster, and that's purely a logistical problem. The trailers that they're buying were essentially made to go out and roll up and down the highway, and that's it. Right now, they're bought, they're stored on the outside of an airstrip, they sink in the mud, depreciate for 2 years, and they have to inflate tires and try to roll them out. And because of congressional mandates, they can only use them once. So the federal government pays $20,000 for a unit, deploys it once, and then has to auction it off for $1,000. So it's a great use of money. So there is obviously a huge housing gap here because 5 days after a disaster, the Red Cross storm shelters that are subsidized by FEMA go away, and people are left with literally nothing for about 90 days until the first FEMA trailers would start rolling in. So if anybody's from Bastrop, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But what we found was really interesting is this is the same parity across lots of other industries. Oil and gas in particular right now, especially in the Balkans, we've had a lot of inbound sales from that because they're trying to house people on a temporary basis, because once they drop in a drill site, it takes about 90 days for portable housing to start showing up. And that's in Texas, where you have a nearby town to go to, and you can send work crews in the interim back to the Motel 6. Not so much in North Dakota. So just to kind of explain a little bit about the market size we're going for, we're not competing against RVs, they come later. We're only going to house people on a short-term basis. And this is kind of how the system works. So literally I have a little small 3D printed model because I couldn't roll a big EXO in here. I'll set this over here on the table. But the idea literally came from coffee cups. So Literally turn your Starbucks coffee cup upside down. We have a two-part design that sleeves together, just like sleeves of coffee cups. Stacked up, we can put 20 on a single trailer and get massive volumes of shipment and in storage. The little explosion signs you see above them all is actually our embedded technology in the units. So each unit has a passive system of RFID that we can actually do inventory and asset management. So we can tell you exactly how many units you have in storage, if they're in transportation, if they're on site. The bigger one you see down here on this unit is we have a Nest-style small smart sensor that's embedded inside of each unit. As soon as they have power on them, they form a wireless mesh network, and our wireless portals can support over 1 million exos, feeding all that data back real time into our Populous application. The unit's set up in two parts. Since they're literally two pieces like a coffee cup, the top shell sits on the floor plate and literally latches in place just like a car door. So in 2 minutes with no tooling, they're light enough to be moved by hand, you can actually set up a unit. So in the time it takes the IKEA shelters they just rolled out for Syria to be assembled in 4 hours, we can move an entire city. And it's actually an entire ecosystem. Once the UN Googled us, they had a question for us about, we want to put UN personnel in it, not refugees. So can we take out the bunks and put in desks? And we're like, now we can. So we did a quick modification, and we ended up with this flexible product that we can adapt to a variety of situations, which now has resulted in we have over $400 million in inbound sales that are unqualified. We don't have a sales staff, a marketing team, and basically just have a business card site up. We haven't tried to sell them yet. And just to show you it's not vaporware, these are 2 prototypes that we currently have in Georgetown that we stored at Georgetown in an aircraft hangar. We've had FEMA from both the federal level, their housing group that has reviewed over 460 systems since Katrina, has been down to look at it and says this gives them capabilities they don't even have right now. FEMA in Region 6 has been here. We've had a variety of investors, and so we're kind of super excited to say we're actually closing our Series seed round on Tuesday for 1.3. We're super excited about the investors and the portfolio companies that come along with that, like Michael Marks, who is the founder and CEO of Flextronics, the largest outsourced manufacturer in the world, and it puts us as a portfolio sister company to SpaceX and Oprah. So I can go in a lot more detail here, but I only had 5 minutes, and it's a lot to talk about, and I got 4 slides. So.
You're going to be trying to sell this to people who are used to not paying much for things, or certainly not much used to paying much profit. Do you have any idea what your margins can be given the markets you're going into?
Sure, and to clarify, I totally overlooked our other 2 verticals. We actually have 3 vertical markets that actually self-reinforce each other. They're combined for 11.4. The disaster response vertical is only 8.4. We know that's a long-term sales cycle, and it's lumpy cash flow because it's dependent on Mother Nature. And that's where everyone else that's ever attempted to do this has sorely failed. Our day-to-day cash flow is actually going to come from our first 2 verticals, which I haven't even really talked about other than how we were adapting. Those would be field services, which we're estimating to be worth about $3.4 billion annually, conservatively, and then recreation-based, which is more lease-based operations, which roll out to large music events like ACL, South by here, or the F1 races. So we've actually have Superfly Presents that puts on Bonnaroo, and Manchester, Tennessee is already interested in renting these out this summer if we have 20 units available for a pilot program, and then they'll purchase next year because besides Bonnaroo, they put on 4 other music events every year. So for pop-up hotels and hospitality, it makes a whole lot of sense.
You can totally see the nature of the pop-up and what it provides for many of the reasons that you've talked through from your channels. What's the consumer experience like? So what is it like to sleep and live in that?
They're actually very nice. Most people, when you think about tents, so right now at Bonnaroo, if you go to Bonnaroo and you rent a tent, you pay $1,500 for 3 nights in a canvas tent on an army cot. Wow. With an EXO, and a Coachella is $6,500, by the way, for the safari tents with a double bed. With an EXO, you actually have very nice, highly designed interior. I don't have interior shots on here because I only have 4 slides, but I'm happy to, if anybody wants to come to Georgetown, we can look at them. But the experience is actually very nice. We've actually taken our iPads, put them on the bottom of a bunk. They have power in them, so we've actually gone through and looked at everything from a user perspective because we're all designers. We're all ex-Frog and ex-Apple that are on our team. So everything we've looked at from how you charge your phones to where you put phones, making sure you have power and all the feature comforts available.
Have you been talking to the military?
We've started talking to some of the military, mostly ex-military that are now distributors and suppliers for troops in Afghanistan and Iraq and some other foreign zones. Because for us, instead of us having to go out with long sales cycles and go through proving grounds with the military directly, it makes more sense in a near-term, quick revenue strategy to actually target distributors and suppliers.
So I totally love this, but I saw you pitch this, I feel like a year ago or something. More than that even. What's taking so long? Why is this such a, like, you're not really in market yet? Like, what's the delay? And
the biggest delay is we're so different. Most of the people that we go out and talk to were like, oh, that's so far outside the wheelhouse of what we would ever invest in. You're doing crazy stuff. You're making things like hardware. So it was kind of a hard sell on a lot of that. So that was some of it for a long time. But the biggest point would be probably about a year ago, we got really serious about it. And when we got serious about it, we brought on some very strategic advisors and investors that essentially helped us really jumpstart things.
So the delay has been around kind of like funding and getting organized, not like you haven't been necessarily working on it full time the whole time?
Oh, no. That was a passion project. That literally started 3 days after Hurricane Katrina. And I worked on it as a passion project literally in my backyard with the first prototypes. And then literally about a year ago, we got very serious about it after our visit to Cupertino and some new friends, and we thought to take this really seriously as a company. And once we started looking at the financials and the other verticals on it, we were like, wow, there's a huge, very sustainable business here.
But I was totally blown away by the 8 finalists, so I just want to give them one more round of applause. So we're going to take another break of about 15 minutes. Judges are going to decide who are the companies that are going to move on to Washington, D.C. and compete for up to $650,000 in prizes. So hold tight, get some more drinks, food, whatever. We'll see you soon.
All right, thank you to everyone who is still here, hanging around. This room was completely packed, standing room only, and you have all made it to the end. And as a special prize, if you look under your seat, you will find nothing but our eternal gratitude. So thank you for coming and supporting all the people who are here. Wow, that was really great. I'm really glad to have you guys here. You know, it's funny, I've been around, I haven't been to like every co-working space in Incubator, but I've been to a bunch of them. I've been to a bunch of them in the US, I've been out touring through Southeast Asia, and as I've told Evan many times, I immediately saw when I got to 1776 that they were like our sister, brother space. They just have so much in common. They're right in the middle of downtown, they're the top floor of a building, it's a big open space like this. They get the idea of community and including people and the way that they do things. And so it's just a natural fit that we do a lot of things together. And we're really excited to be doing this and to have you guys coming out for South by. So thanks for including us in that. So we have 4 winners, and it was really hard. You'll know, normally judging takes like 5 minutes. Like I do these things a lot. It's like the judges go and they kind of like, and it took us a long time to do the last ones because those were hard, and it was very difficult to decide these as well. So congratulations to everybody. But we had to pick 4 winners to go off to the championship. And another thing we just decided is, as much as everybody's pitches were great, we're going to offer some free pitch training from Capital Factory for the next round too, to help make sure that Austin represents as we go out there. Because we want to make sure that we take in the prize. We do have our secret entry with Ride Scout coming in from the DC side too, so we got an extra. But we want to make sure Austin takes some of the winners. So the 4 winners in the education category, we have Aceable. In the, what category is this called? Energy category, we have Waterlands. In the health category, Spot On Sciences. And there could have been possibly some kind of physical alteration over this one in the back, but in the Smart Cities category, the winner is Reaction Housing. Come on up. There was always very landmark inside. So let's give another good round of applause for all of them. That was pretty awesome.
All right, so do you guys can just hang up here for a little bit? Yeah, so hopefully we'll see some of you guys at South by here in a few weeks, and then we'll hang out with these guys second week in May in Washington, D.C., and help you guys do everything we can to scale your businesses. So if the judges can come up, we're going to do judging pictures, winner pictures, big group pictures, have some fun. Rest of you guys, do we have any beer left? We have some wine left. Anyway, thanks for coming out. Thank you very much, Austin.